What if I told you that cowboys in the Wild West did not wear cowboy hats, at least not until near the end of the period? Would you think that crazy? Well, it is, but it's also accurate. And in this short history, I'm going to tell you why, along with where the myth that they initially wore cowboy hats came from. But first, you've got to remember to subscribe to my channel. The hat of choice for the cowboy was actually a Mexican sombrero along with a bowler hat. So yep, not cowboy hats as we know them today, but Mexican sombreros and bowler hats, which were the real cowboy hats of the Wild West. Now, I'm not joking on this. Mexican sombreros and bowler hats were the real cowboy hats of the Wild West. The famous early 20th century writer Lucius Beebe even called bowler hats the hat that won the West. But the question is, of course, why does popular culture teach us otherwise? So why does it tell us that cowboys of the Wild West wore Stetsons? Well, Hollywood, of course. Think those famous high-crowned, wide-brimmed Stetson cowboy hats that the likes of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood used to wear. But then why did Hollywood put John Wayne and the like in the wrong hats? I mean, hell, if you're going to depict the Wild West, surely you should depict it as it was, right? Well, wrong, obviously. This is Hollywood. To explain, people in the West at the time the films were made wore the atypical cowboy hats as we know them today. So high-crowned, wide-brimmed. And Stetsons were one of the most popular. That means that Hollywood put John Wayne and that in the Stetsons because they were the most popular hat at the time. So obviously they would look coolest in them at the time. And that is just what Hollywood does. They don't show us history as it was in the past. They show us history as if the present was in the past. You just have to look at the Scottish. They always wear kilts regardless of whether they wore kilts at that point in history. This is why in Braveheart the Scottish wear kilts, even though it would be centuries before the Scots started actually wearing kilts. But anyway, returning to the main narrative in terms of why bowler hats had gone out of fashion, the story of their demise actually begins after the end of the American Civil War. To explain, after the Union won the Civil War, the government began to crack down on the West in an effort to bring law and order to it, so to, civilize it. And one of the main ways that they went about doing this was using the military, and this was because the main people they were trying to civilize were the Native Americans, who of course were none too happy about these efforts. And because they were so unhappy, this meant that of course the military had to be used even more. And this matters because the use of the military in the Wild West is really important to the story of the demise of the bowler hat as the hat of choice and the rise of the Stetson in its place. This is because Stetsons only started becoming popular due to members of the Union cavalry starting to wear them as an alternative to the regulation wear of the time. And it makes sense why they would do this as well, you see. The regulation wear of the time, so of the 1870s, was a forage hat. And let's just say that Stetsons were much more suited to the Wild West than forage hats. But even with the Stetson's newfound popularity amongst Union cavalry members, it still didn't enter the market for mass purchase until about 1885. And it would take up until near the end of the century for it to become popular amongst cowboys. That means that the Stetson did not actually become popular outside of the military until after the Wild West era had pretty much ended. I'm not joking about this. This is actually legit. Even though it is a total mood killer for the view of the Wild West and, the cool hats they all wore, it is the actual truth. Even members of the infamous Wild Bunch from the 1890s, which included outlaws like the Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy, mostly they all still wore bowler hats. And the pictures we have of them show them mostly wearing bowler hats. But anyway, to round things up, that means that the reason Stetsons became popular initially was because the Union cavalry's regulation hats, when they were sent into the West in the 1870s to bring law and order, were simply ill-suited to the West. And so members started preferring the Stetson alternative, and this led to the gradual increase in popularity of the Stetson until eventually, by the early 20th century, it had become the most popular hat in the West. But it was still not in the form of the one we think of now. The high-crowned, wide-brimmed one did not actually become popular until near the middle of the 20th century, so near enough when they started making the films. Prior to that, it was the boss of the Plains hat that was the most popular. But anyway, what that means is that, yes, truly, the real gunslingers and outlaws wore bowler hats, which means that bowler hats are the real cowboy hats of the Wild West and the real hat of the outlaw, despite what Hollywood tells us. On that crazy note, I will of course leave things there, and I will say thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this, remember to give it a like and subscribe to my channel, because if you do, I'll be able to make more short histories like this. Is that a good bribe? I hope it is, and I will see you next time.